Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the first edition of our I Am Alumni stories. On behalf of the I Am Alumni Association, I welcome you to our first edition of the I Am Stories, a new series that we have started to share our experiences and our stories with current students. And the first edition targets at first semester students. We would like to share experiences that former students, current students from higher semesters made, and to share these experiences with you. Very happy to see that so many have joined in on Zoom, more than 30 people, and I'm sure that some more are watching us on YouTube as well. I would like to welcome our four guests. We'll see them in picture in a second. We have Flavia Stähli, who graduated in 2019, so she's already an alumna. I remember her that she was the one who always took all those context modules that were possible. So we spent several weeks on study trips abroad. She will introduce herself in a second. Then we have a student from the part-time program, Andreas Kuster, who is already in the 5th semester, which is roughly the half of the part-time program. We have Domenic Larchader, also in the 5th semester, but full-time program, so moving towards the end of the studies. And we have Linda Messerli, member of the board of the I Am Alumni Association, and she's a full-time student in the 5th semester as well. During the session, we will first start with a discussion with the four panelists. Then we move on to a question and answer round. You have the possibility to ask your questions as well. You can use the chat function in Zoom. If you have any questions, you can add them, you can post them whenever they come to your mind. On YouTube, you can also add your comments. We will then include them in the chat function here in in the Zoom session. Once again, please do not switch on your camera during the session, otherwise you will be in the middle of the video stream. Okay. We now have a total of 4 speakers that we should be able to see. I'm trying to switch them on. So please, those who have been invited, Andreas, Flavia, Domenic, and and Linda, I should open your video now. Otherwise, we cannot see you. So just a second. It's the first edition. We're doing the best, and they drop in, and we now have the 4 panelists. So very warm welcome to all of you. Let's get through the round very quickly. Flavia, tell us a few words about yourself. Who are you, and what were your studies like?
Well, as you already mentioned, I graduated last year, and right now I'm doing a marketing and communication internship since a bit more than 3 months for a company called Kadi. They are producing frozen food items for the gastronomy sector in Switzerland. And last year, after I graduated, I worked for half a year as a waitress in the same restaurant. I also worked part-time during my studies. And then this year, well, the beginning of the year should have been my travel year, but well, due to Corona, that wasn't going very well. So now I'm very happy that even though the times are a bit hard to find jobs, that I found a very nice internship. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Andreas, you're a part-time student in the middle of the study program, 5th semester. So tell us a few words about yourself.
Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Andreas Kuster. I study part-time and I'm in my 5th semester, so just past half point. I work part-time at a firm called Carlo Bernasconi, and I work in the sales department there. yeah,
Mhm.
that's about it.
Okay. Dominic, you're also in the 5th semester, but in the full-time program. So for you, you just started the last year of your studies. We all hope so. Tell us a few words about yourself. I need to open your microphone maybe once again. Here we go.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, my name is Dominic Lachete. I'm studying IM as well. I'm in my last year. I'm in the 5th semester, actually. Yeah, I'm 24 years old, and yeah, glad to be here today. And yeah, looking forward to this session.
Great, thank you very much. Linda, you're in the 5th semester as well. So parallel to Dominic, tell us a few words about yourself.
Hi everyone, I'm Linda, and of the panel discussion today, I'm kind of like the failure kid because I will be mostly talking about me failing the 1st semester. But as you can see, I made it. I'm now in the 5th semester, so don't worry, and I will tell you more later on.
Exactly. You would have graduated actually a few weeks ago if there had not been this extra turn, and you were willing to talk about that. So we'll definitely come back to this question of how to handle failure and how to find energy and motivation again. Thank you very much to all of you for sharing your experiences. Now, Flavio, and looking back, what was the most difficult moment in the 3 years at the Fachhochschule?
Oh, that's a hard question. The most difficult moment. I think it was statistics too. Learning for the exam, that was quite a nightmare. But no, I think the first maybe 2 semesters were harder for me because they were a lot of like math based, with like business math, statistics, this kind of topics which I'm not very good at. But after that, from I'd say 4th semester, where you could choose more the subjects you wanted to take with like the context modules, and afterwards with the major and minor, it got easier because you could choose the topics that you were actually interested in and not just the ones that you had to take.
Mm-hmm. How was your first semester, Andreas, or the first 2 or 3 semesters? Flavia mentioned statistics too, which seems to be one of those threatening modules, right? We have all heard about them. Accounting is another one, I'm afraid.
Well, I would agree with Flavia. For me, it probably was also math and statistics that were the most worrisome for me in the beginning. But I think it gets easier and easier after the first couple semesters, once you get used to it and know how things work. Yeah.
Once you have found out how things work, what do you exactly mean how things work? What are the things that you need to find out as a first semester student?
Well, I think in comparison to the regular school, like grade 1 to 9, it's more independent study, which requires to adapt your learning style a little bit. And I think it's very individual to everyone. So it's hard to give like specific advice. But yeah, I think it's quite important to kind of reflect on how you're doing, and specifically taking time out and reconsider, like, is the way that I'm doing things really appropriate or not?
Mm-hmm. Would you agree to that, Dominic? The self-study, the independent, the self-organization, that is key to success?
I think at the beginning of the studies, it's always, especially if you're doing your first bachelor, it's something new. So in the first step, you should really try to figure out how you're going to do it. And I totally agree with Andreas, because yeah, it's difficult to give really specific personal advices on that, because everybody should really find its own way how to do it. But I think a big key is to really try to come up with the own strategy, how you're going to manage all the modules, and how you and stay flexible. That's something which is really important, especially in the first semester, which is the assessment semester, and therefore it's important to be
develop the own strategy you're mentioning. What was your strategy, Dominic, so far?
Yeah, at the beginning, it was not that easy because it was necessary to find out how everything is working, how the lectures are going, because that's something new. As Andreas already told, it's something new that you have a computer in front of you the whole time during the session. So you get easily self-distracted sometime, but you have to be really focused and try to follow the lectures, and especially try to retrieve the most important thing from the lectures. And that's something you should train your listening skills and your how to take notes and everything. I think that's something, and I tried really to adapt there to my strategy, to doing notes and listening very well, and then trying to figure out how everything is working, and try to get a big overview of everything is going on a semester. I think like this management skill is important to learn, and you will improve that during the coming semesters, of course.
Just a short reminder to the listeners, those who are currently training their listening skills in the audience, you can always ask questions using the chat function in Zoom or the comment function on YouTube. So do not hesitate to ask questions. We'll have time towards the end of the session to come back to your questions. Flavia, did you have a strategy to survive? Dominic mentioned, well, you need to be flexible. That sounds pretty obvious, but are there specific strategies?
Well, I think you have to know yourself, like how is the best way you study, especially during the study phase. And I know that I have problems to just sit down and be motivated to study like 8 hours a day. So I had to do during the semester quite a lot. I had to like prepare all my summaries and stuff, so that I did not have to sit down that many hours like probably a lot of other people did. So I was a bit lazy during that 2 weeks, but it worked out.
Linda, did you develop some kind of strategy in the past years?
Yeah, I really learned from my first semester, like when I really started, because as I already told you, I failed the first semester. And one of the most important things that I learned is like really start with the summaries right on, because like we had some people that thought like, hey, come on, I will do the summaries like in those 2 weeks when I will study, this will be enough. And those people were going through hell. And the other thing is also for especially financial accounting, statistics, and maths, do the exercises from the beginning on. Because in my very first semester, I was like, yeah, come on, I can do it like 4 weeks later. That will be okay, because like right now I want to get to know the new people. It's really new, and I don't know, I had other things to do as well. And then I had to learn it the hard way, because it wasn't manageable at all. And especially like life can happen too. What happened to me was like on the 24th of December, I had a concussion that was not that helpful for studying. And I guess if I would have learned and studied earlier on, this would have been manageable. Of course, I didn't study for a week or something, but if I would have started earlier, maybe I could have managed at the end. And that's something that I really learned, is like really start from the beginning on. I know like Netflix is really cool at the moment. You think like, yeah, I'm at home now, I have like more time because I don't have to commute, but really use that time because it's really so valuable for you.
Thank you very much for a short overview on your strategies so far. Now, Linda, you mentioned, and you agreed to talk about that very openly. You failed the first semester, and obviously this is a threat to many students. You might have heard that there are some, well, we do not have official dropout ratios. We never had any, but there are some kind of statistics that some people will fail the first semester and probably have to repeat. What happened when you learned about that?
When I failed, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, to be honest, like for those two, like I especially felt like the two that I mentioned, like financial accounting and maths and statistics, the others I passed. So for me, it actually was clear that I would fail, but like when I then saw the grade, I was like, wow, this is even like very low for the way that I used to study, like for Wirtschaftsmittelschule, for example. And to be honest, I was like really in a bad phase that moment. And it really took some weeks, I guess, to get up again, because I knew by that moment, like, hey, you won't graduate with those very nice people. So this will no longer be your class. You will have to get to know new people. And this was also kind of strange for me. So what I then did, like during that semester, when I then had to wait to start again the first semester, is like, take your time. If it really happens to you, I hope to all the ones that are now in this discussion, this doesn't happen to you, because it's like so annoying. But I took the time and did the C1 in French and English. You can never lose time, so that was okay. And during that half year, I then learned to, well, really do the exercises from the beginning on. And also when things go wrong, don't lose your motivation, because then you're really lost. Once it's gone, then it's gone for sure.
I fully agree to what you say. On the other side, you could question that. I mean, do not lose the motivation. How could you find the motivation? You said you were down when you heard about the back rates, even lower than what you expected. How could you re-find the energy and the motivation again?
Well, I took some time off. Like I did the French course in Montreal, so I was like at a different place. For English, I went to Malta. This was also a different place. So I just needed a break. And at the end, it was also my old class that tried to motivate me, like, hey, why don't you try like the retakes, like some weeks after? You can do it. I can help you. No problem. You can get my summaries, whatever. But then I had to say, like, hey, look, like my grades were so low. This doesn't make sense. And yeah, I don't know. Like then the feeling like, hey, this isn't me. Like I'm not giving up. Like I didn't go through hell like for that one semester to just give up right now. So I don't know. It's like really hard to give like a strategy to how find your motivation again. I think you just need your friends and family to tell you, hey, you're such a great guy. You're such a great girl. You can do it. Like, come on.
Okay. Andreas, Dominic, Flavia, did you have moments of deception, of disappointment, where things were much worse than you expected them to be? Not necessarily great, or you did not have to repeat a semester, but I'm sure there were moments when doubts came up. Dominic,
Well,
you're laughing, or Andreas? Yes, please. Andreas first, and then we move on to Dominic. Yeah.
well, for me, for sure there were moments where I thought there is no point in even going to the exam. Like we said in the beginning, for example, for math and statistics, there was really a point when I thought it's not worth it to even like spend a minute at the exam. But well, it's very treacherous to think like that. And I think in the end, that it's possible for everyone to pass those exams. Just try your best and go for it.
Dominic, your experience with bad moments?
Yeah, I try to keep myself to say myself that it's gonna be fine actually, and if you have some moments like that, I think it's important that you do some work during the semester. So at the end, if you have such a moment before the exams, that you really have some preparation done. So actually then you can feel much more comfortable. And what I try to think for myself is like the graduation at the end. Try to think when I'm being there what it's going to be like, and that gives me more motivation, of course. Yeah.
Flavia, did you ever have any of those moments where you had doubts that you're in the right university, in the right program, that you are really sure that what you're doing is the right thing?
Oh yeah, I did have those, not really related to the exams and stuff, but more related to the subject itself. Because I remember that, like, in the first or second week, where we had like an introduction to all the subjects we are going to have in the first semester, I was like, okay, there isn't really a subject that I'm very interested in. And it got better, but then it also was the problem that there were so many group work projects, and I'm just really not a fan of those. I prefer to study on my own. So I did wonder several times if that's actually the right subject for me, like business in general and stuff. But I thought, okay, come on, you started it already, so you have to get through it, and afterwards you can still decide in which area you want to work. Because I think that's the great thing about studying business, that you can work in a quite a broad field of different industries. So that's why I went through with it.
Which obviously raises a topic that is important to many of the freshmen, as we call them, the students in the first semester. Some of you might be very, very sure that you're absolutely in the right program. Some might have started that because you just didn't know what to do else. And some thought maybe, yeah, let's try it. And if it works, it's cool. And if not, well, let's do something different. So the question is, how do you handle that situation? How do you deal with that situation when you're not sure that you're in the right program? Someone mentioned that you thought about, or two of you mentioned actually, you look at what the options are at the end. You motivate yourself by looking at the idea that you will get the diploma, you will have job opportunities. But what can you do in such a moment? You're full of doubts. You don't know what you're doing in this program, in this university. So what do you do then?
Well, I think personally for me, it was very important to choose the topics that we could actually choose, which are not very many of them. So for me, it was very important to choose them because I was really interested in, and not because I thought it would look good afterwards on a CV. Because I know a lot of my co-students, for them it was very important to have a good CV and everything, and for me it was more important to do something that is actually interesting me, because I know afterwards I have to study for it, and if it's just so boring for me, I know myself that I cannot motivate myself to study. So that was the important thing for me.
Other experiences with those big doubts that necessarily come up at one point in time during the studies, whether you're in the right program at the right university doing the right things? Or have you never had any of these doubts?
Well, I guess for the part-time students, it's a bit different because if others can relate to this as well, for me, it's more like another step to go ahead and develop the skills necessary to get to the next step. So I think it's probably a bit easier for part-time students to find the purpose in why we study what we study.
Okay. Domenico and Linda, any moment when you had those big doubts?
Yeah, as me personally, I didn't had any doubts actually, because for me it was clear from the start on, because I did my research before about the study program. So I took a lot of time to decide which one I want to take, and I did like a list with advantages and disadvantages for every study program. So for me, what it was clear that it's going to be IM. So also the exchange you have in the third semester was also a big advantage to further collect experiences, especially in other cultures. And I like to work with people from other cultures, and that's something which was really a great thing. Yeah, that's that.
Mm-hmm. Linda, I can imagine in that very difficult moments that you had the doubts, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I have to be honest, like back then I wasn't really that good with like numbers and figures and that kind of thing. Like, to be honest, I wasn't interested at all in those kind of topics. I'm really sorry about that. But and then I really, like in the very first semester, I was then thinking like maybe I'm not good for like those kind of things, like because in business you calculate everything like the return on equity, will this investment be very good or not or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had the feeling like, hey, I'm not that kind of person to like calculate everything and then to make decisions. I'm like more of a person that is like interested in human beings instead of like thinking about like, hey, I have to lay off at least 20 people, otherwise I won't be able to make a profit. And I really had those doubts for a moment, and of course then I also failed. But then in my second round, when I found out like, hey, this is actually like really doable if I would just have done those exercises, then I realized, hey, it's okay, I'm really in the right place. And I also realized, hey, you're the at the place that you will later on work, it doesn't mean that you always have to do financial accounting or maths. There are like other things like human resources, or now the new major, compliance management. So yeah.
So those topic subjects in the first 1 or 2 semesters were more like the door opener, or the things you had to overcome to get to paradise, kind of paradise afterwards. Yes. Questions are slowly dropping in. Do not forget to ask your questions on the Zoom chat function or on the comment function on YouTube. One question was asked, and we would have talked about that anyway. Andreas, you're a part-time student, so you have to find a way to somehow balance studies, work, private life. How do you manage?
Well, I guess it's very important, at least for me, to have a balanced life. And I'm think in that regard, I'm quite happy that I have a flexible employer.
Mm-hmm.
So during the semester, I work 40%. And then during the holidays, I just work as much as possible. And yeah, in that regards, it's pretty great because I often can take days or weeks off before the exams to prepare.
Mm-hmm.
And it helps a lot to have this flexibility. But I think also for the part-time students, it's important that you study efficiently, like because you have very limited time, the time you actually have should be spent wisely. And a lot of them comes back to planning. There's a saying, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And I think that's very true.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, set up a plan, think of when you are productive, and also the conditions where you can study productively, and also with whom. That's also important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned that your employer seems to be very flexible and giving you a lot of freedom. I'm sure that in your class you have heard from other students who do not have that privilege of such a generous employer. How do others handle that situation? Those who are hired by a company where you have to be there on Tuesday and you have to work your 60% on the same days. How do they manage?
Well, I think planning for them might be even more important, that they really stick to the times when they can get things done. Because like we heard before, once you're behind schedule, it's pretty difficult to catch up again. Yeah, I think a lot of it boils down to just being strict to yourself and stick to what you want to do and when you want to do things.
Do you plan your private life as part of the weekly agenda? Or is private life happening when it happens?
Yeah, it's pretty structured right now. So I have like my weekly schedule where I plan out things, and then I just reserve time for meeting friends or doing sports, just something to have a kind of a balanced lifestyle.
Okay, what does your work week look like, Dominic? Do you plan private life, student life as well, or does this as a full-time student happen any day anyway?
Yeah, for me it's a bit special because I'm studying full-time, and I actually have more modules than a part-time student in a semester. At the moment, I'm also working 40% beside my studies. So my work week is pretty much stuffed. I try to really open some time to get things done, like Andreas said. So that's really important, but you should really not overdo it. It's important to have a balanced lifestyle. Otherwise, you're gonna lose your motivation earlier or later. So that's something really important. For me personally, I don't know how others do it, but some people are there a bit more structured than me when it's about the private life. I'm doing it when I feel I have to engage at the private life. So sometimes you feel just like there's one day you don't feel very well, or you don't feel in the mood to do stuff for the studies. So then it's usually the day when I say, yeah, okay, I do something with my friends or my family. So then I get more energy out of it, and I can do more stuff later on then. Yeah. So you will be more productive if you really plan or have some time with your friends or family. Yeah.
Which also means that you have to plan family time, you have to plan student life time, you have to plan parties instead of just going for another drink after another class and let it happen. And which also means that you have to accept that there are days where you're not very productive, and let those days happen and accept them instead of being frustrated and getting annoyed and angry in front of the computer. Linda, you mentioned another resource which I think is very important. You talked about the motivation you received from your class, especially in this challenging moment. What's the role of the class? How can others support you during your studies?
I guess that's really very important because at the very beginning, we had some people in my class that thought like, hey, this is like numerus clausus, like only the best ones will graduate or whatever. But like, we don't have this kind of procedure. So everyone is allowed to have good grades. So it's not a competition. And what we then started is, of course, to have a group chat together, help each other out. Like there were, for example, people that were very good at taking summaries in maths or financial accounting. Others were better at doing summaries in ethics and the other kind of subject. So really help each other. It's not a competition. Like in 5 years, nobody will care if you had like a 5.1 or 5.2, because that's really not the important thing. And what we actually also did, we had like study groups. Like I had some friends, and we then tried to study some maths, especially when I wasn't motivated at all, I then like texted them like, hey, can we maybe study on Friday together? Because like I'm not really getting through the topic at the moment. And this really helped to like also stay on top of like the schedule. Then for a bit, of course, like in my very first semester, I didn't, but then in my second semester, like in my second round, this was really helpful. So if you feel like you're like losing it, like you're losing track, or like you don't get something from very like something difficult or whatever from exercise, just ask your colleagues, because they can maybe actually also learn from it, like, and maybe they will see like, hey, you're really good at principles of management, so you can help each other. And yeah, that's really the main message. Help each other, because it's not a competition at all.
Yeah, and maybe Flavia, you had other ways to find your resources and your energy again. What did you do in moments when you had to recover and find energy again?
Well, I was also working during my studies. So in the first year, I worked around 10 hours a week. And then in the after the exchange semester, so semester 4 to 6, I worked between 20 and 25 hours a week. So I found that quite relaxing, because I worked as a waitress, so it had nothing to do with what I was studying, and the job was usually very stressful, so I didn't have time to think about my studies, so I had to be very focused. And I found that quite nice, because you had like your head was empty with study stuff and just focused on what you were doing in that moment.
So I would say it's not that you encourage the students to work as much as possible, but rather to do something completely different. Let's take this message, right? Or is it do as much as possible in your spare time? I guess not, right? But do something where you can detach from university life, probably. Yeah. Let's have a look at some of the questions we have received. There were more questions. A first one asked that Linda, was it a complete surprise to you that you failed accounting and maths, or did you have a feeling during the semester? Or maybe we could also ask in a more general way, do you know? Do you have some kind of feeling in which direction you're heading before the exam then tells you?
Yeah, like for me, it was very clear, because I saw what kind of efforts the other students were putting in. And then there was me like rather doing very perfectly detailed principles of management summaries. And then I really realized like I didn't do the exercises. And this is why it wasn't that surprising that I failed. Of course, I had the feeling like maybe it would be at 3.5, like that maybe like only some points were missing, because like the last few weeks I really tried my best, but it just wasn't enough. But I guess like, but if you're now already like, I don't know why you were asking this question, because maybe you already have the feeling like, oh, like she's talking about her experience, I kind of feel the same way. Does this now mean that I have to fail because she failed? Don't think like this, because like you're like still very at the very beginning of the semester. Like if you now catch up, then it will be perfectly fine. And yeah, there were like other students that also kind of started at that kind of time. Now it's like October, and they really passed like with a 5 or whatever. It's like just really important to now start with the exercises. And yeah, don't be afraid to ask the teachers, because they're here to help you. And of course also your class, so yeah.
Which leads to another question that was asked, I think, over YouTube or direct message to Theo. One person asked, what would be your advice for struggling students who feel uncomfortable or embarrassed to ask for help? And I think, also taking up the point you just gave, Linda, this is something that happens very, very often. And maybe it's also some kind of cultural thing, right? Failure is not the most favorite thing in Switzerland. I remember when I was lecturing in the US, everyone was proud that they have already failed so many times, because failure there is kind of a success. Here in Switzerland, we always have some kind of negative connotation. So what do those students do that do not have the courage to ask? for help, what would you say? Question goes to anyone in the round. How can they handle that?
For me personally, it was like rather doing like a trade-off, like because at the very first moment I didn't want to show that I was like really struggling, that I was behind schedule. So what I tried is to distract from that thing a little bit, and then like I started actually emailing like to most of the students of my old class, just like my principles of management summaries, so that they saw like, hey, she's actually doing something, so she's not lazy. And when I then approached them like, hey, what do you think about studying together? You don't have to really say like from the beginning on like, hey, I'm like really struggling, I'm failing for sure. Just like ask like, hey, can we study together? And maybe you will also see like, hey, this person is maybe also struggling. So you will struggle together, but you will find a solution, and maybe you will ask someone else who's very good at maths, and then it will be all fine.
Mm-hmm. Andreas, Dominic, Flavia, what would you say to those students who do not have the courage to say a word that they're struggling, they are feeling uncomfortable?
Well, I guess everyone has its like their strengths and their weaknesses. So there is probably somebody that struggles with a subject that is easy for you.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, it's just natural. We cannot be awesome in everything. Yeah, and also teaching somebody something is a great way to learn. So probably the people would appreciate to have the chance to explain you how some problems that you might not know how to solve them.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it's an opportunity as well.
Mm-hmm. Dominic, Flavia, any advice from your side? I think it's an important question.
Yeah,
Because
actually,
if you don't accept that you need help, you will not get it, right?
Yeah, actually, it's a very good question. But I think everybody will get some friends during the time of studies within their classes or parallel classes. And I think it's very valuable to have like a group who is working together. And as Andreas already told, teaching something or explaining some things to each other may help as well. Yeah, I think that's that. You can always like divide your working load between the people in the group, and that's also something which really helps to get things done more efficiently and fast.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a valuable thing, I think.
Mm-hmm. Flavia, what would you answer to this question? With a bit more experience, even.
Yeah, I think it's quite a hard question. I think firstly, I think it's important that you don't care too much what other people think about you. So you shouldn't care too much if you show some weakness. But if it helps you, probably it's easier to first ask some of your closer friends than just put your questions in a group chat or something like that. And also, if you don't want to approach people, a lot of stuff, like especially statistics and stuff, there are good YouTube tutorials, which I find helpful sometimes. So maybe you can try to teach it yourself via other channels than just the lessons.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Question that directly came up in this very moment when you said about tutorials and online stuff. Did somebody of you work with the tutors from Fachhochschule? Did these private lessons help? Anyone ever used any of those private offers?
So in which terms? So
I think, well, we have a number of different offers, right? So one of the offer is the tutorials given by the lecturers, as we have in financial accounting, for instance. And I think that there's pretty much the same system in math and statistics, or used to be the same system. But there are also students, assistants who offer private lessons to students, probably for money, not just for free, I would assume.
So as I know, in every module, you normally have at the end of the semester a wrap-up session, kind of like, and I think that's a good thing to have this overview at the end again, like wrapping up everything, and that's important to really ask the questions you had during the semester or during the exercises to address them and then improve on that.
Mhm.
I once took a supporting tutor for writing, but for me personally, I didn't need it because I just wanted to ask this person actually if my text is written in a good style. So that was in the first semester where we had to write a literature review. So there was more like support for to get an opinion on the paper. It was not like struggling on writing. So I think I got a really good experience there. The people were really, the person there was really nice and supportive. And I think if you're really struggling in terms of writing, then there's always somebody here to help you in this terms. For the other tutors, I don't have any experience there. So yeah.
Okay, we're slowly moving towards the last part. If you have further questions, you can still add them to the Zoom chat or to the comment function on YouTube. If we do not have sufficient time to answer all of them, we can still reply to them at the end in a written way or add a comment on YouTube. So do not hesitate to ask your questions. Just one more comment to the question you raised before. If you're looking for help, and this is more like an official statement now, right? If you need help, go and get your help as soon as possible. If you have doubts, try to find someone you can speak to, be it a colleague, be it a classmate, be it a lecturer, be it someone from admin. We also offer several institutions inside FHNW or close to us where you can find help. And I think it's very, very important that if you have doubts, if you have difficult moments, try to find help as soon as possible. And the earlier you get your help, the easier you will get out of the problems. So there are plenty of possibilities where to find help, and then someone is there to help you. And these moments might come. It's not necessarily in the first semester, but they will come. Another question that was asked, a very practical one for once. What are the platforms that you use? What are the tools that you use to take notes and make summaries for your subjects? Very practical question.
It's actually a good question, I think, because I was struggling with that at the beginning as well. So I really try to get the whole overview by writing down the things I need to have done. So to get an overview about assignments you have to do and what is requested at the end. So that's something which really helped me. I used, for example, an Excel sheet where I put the different subjects there and the things I have to do until which date. So that's something which really helped me to get an overview. Yeah, I think that's the most crucial part actually in the end, to have this overview and you do not forget anything. The calendar is of course something, so there you can also put in some alerts if you have to do some things, because maybe in the first semester it will work out like that if you not write down the things, but you will come to a point where you cannot have these points in your head when you have to do what. So that's something which is really important for your management.
Other experiences, Linda, Andreas, Flavia, how did you manage? What were the tools that you have used so far?
I like to have everything at one place, so I use OneNote, Microsoft OneNote, and I import all the documents, so I don't have to switch around a lot.
Mhm.
Well, maybe except for the time plan, I use Excel file, but other than that, just OneNote.
Mhm. OneNote seems to be very popular as far as I have heard, right? Many students seem to use OneNote as it seems to be very practical, hands-on, and intuitive. Other experiences, or did you also use something like OneNote or still paper? Why not?
I usually for like subjects with a lot of PowerPoints and like let's say more like theoretical subjects like organizational behavior and this kind of thing. I usually did my notes into the PDF PowerPoint thing during the class, and afterwards I copied the important thing in a Word so that at the end I could just print out the Word document and then use that to study. And some subjects like accounting or math, I usually did my notes on paper where I could write the exercises and stuff like that.
I kind of did it the same way, like, but I never did notes into the PDF like PowerPoints. Like before the lecture started, or like maybe the evening before, when the slides were already available, I copied everything from the slides into a Word. And this was already a way to already get into the topic and already see like, oh, this seems kind of difficult at this kind of topic within the lecture. I really have to be very focused and take a lot of notes. And yeah, I then had like already a Word ready during the lectures and put in all the notes. And then after the lecture, I actually already had a summary. So this was actually very helpful. And like for maths, I actually also did it like per hand, because for statistics, for example, I had a summary that I wrote by hand, because it's like more easy to do like a summary like with the box plot and everything, because I didn't want to spend too much time to create a box plot on Word or whatever. So I guess maybe for maths and statistics, it's maybe easier to do your summary handwrittenly.
We have one last question, short answer on a complicated topic. How much value do you put on study groups? They were mentioned several times, but the person asking it also says it's quite difficult in these times, right, to organize study groups. Online groups are just not the same. Fully agree. I think that's an experience we all made. How do you currently work with study groups? Do you still have them? Do you meet online? Do you meet physically?
Yeah, I have some buddies where we meet up sometimes, or also project teams where we had to work out some project solutions or for our project client. And actually, the advantage was in our case that we knew each other from the beginning of the year. So from the beginning of the studies, because we met face to face. But in this time, it's very difficult to get to know to the people, because everything is online and there's kind of like the social interaction missing. So you should really try to figure out or to get to know some people personally face to face, especially the beginning. I know there are different times at the moment with all the COVID kind of things going on, but I think to really bond, it's important to meet up personally. And then if you know each other and you know how everybody is and what their strengths are, then you can also go online, I think. But at the moment, I really appreciate how it's done online. So I can really get along with it. And it's actually also a time saver. So, yeah.
Andreas, do you still work in study groups in your part-time class?
Yeah, I do. Because we only have class from midday on Thursdays. We meet in the morning at school and then we study together. I think it's very valuable to have those people around.
So you would recommend that you get in contact with each other despite all the restrictions, despite all those difficulties that we are currently facing, and we cannot change them, but get in contact with each other and try to organize something, and then you can still switch to online from time to time.
Yeah, I think in the end, everyone needs to decide for themselves. But I much rather have study with people in person.
Let's come to a very last question, short round to all four of you. If you had one advice to give to first semester students, what would it be? Linda, your advice to them.
Just really start from right now on, like, especially if you up to now didn't do that much, really do those exercises. Don't be afraid to ask Marcel Hirsiger or the other professors, because they're here to help. Ask your colleagues, and maybe also try to do as many summaries as possible from now on, because you never know what can happen in December. Like, I had a concussion. You don't know if you have to go into quarantine. You don't know if you get sick. So try to do as much as possible right now, so that you have like a puffer at the end that you can say, okay, like if something happens, I have like 1 week that it's okay that I do nothing, and then you will be fine.
Andreas, your advice to the students?
I would say, if it comes to exam, go into the exams with a strategy. For example, math and statistics, I was much stronger in statistics, so I started with statistics and used the rest of the time for math. Or let's say for business communications, when we had to do the writing, focus on the type of writing you know how to do them, and you can do them well. So have a strategy.
Dominic, your advice to first semester students?
Yeah, first of all, I think it's important to get an overview over everything, and then decide on the topics, on the modules, what are your strengths, and then based on that, make up your own strategy, as Andreas already did. It's actually like, I think the strategy is the most important thing, and then start doing things like for the subject accounting, maybe start doing the exercises from the beginning on, and then ask questions. Also in mathematics and statistics, it's really important to do the exercises, and that's crucial also for the success at the end.
Flavia, as the graduate in the round, with a little bit more experience even, what's your final advice to students? You have the last word.
I'd say stay up to date with the material during the semester and not only during the study phase, and choose the topics based on your interest and not based on what you think you might need afterwards.
Okay, thank you very much. We have covered a lot of questions, I'm sure not all of them. So to all those who are listening, if you have more questions, do not hesitate to talk to people on campus or to get in contact with the alumni organization. There are plenty of possibilities to get in contact with each other. You can also add a comment on YouTube afterwards. We will reply to that once in a while. So do not hesitate to continue asking your questions. I would like to thank the 4 panelists for contributing. That was the first edition of our IM Stories, where we talk a bit about the experiences of current and former students. Thank you very much, Flavia, Linda, Dominic, and Andreas, for participating and for sharing your experiences and for talking so openly. So virtual applause to everyone contributing. And I would just like to quickly show you the possibilities how to stay in contact. We have iamalumni.ch as our website. You can follow us on Instagram. So you will also be informed about future events if you want to continue participating. Thank you very much. We now stop the live stream. Wish you all a great evening and hope to see you soon in one of the following events. Thank you very much and enjoy the week.